Hello again from Metro Manila, the Philippines, Southeastern Asia. Christel and Eckhard Wehage tried in desperation to cross the Berlin Wall, and then when that failed, they tried to commit suicide by hijacking an airplane, but the airplane was actually flown back to the Schönefeld airport in East Berlin, and there they then committed suicide, according to Wikipedia. So they were married. Mr. Eckhard Wehage had been born in July 1948 in Berselharz, Saxony-Anhalt. Mrs. Christel Wehage had been born in December 1946 in Wolmirstedt-Börde, Saxony-Anhalt. So during their joint suicide, they were still young. Eckhard was only 21 years old, while Christel was 23 years old. Eckhard had enlisted in the East German Army in 1967 after having twice unsuccessfully tried to flee East Germany. He had eventually graduated from the non-commissioned officer school in Stralsund on the East German coast of the Baltic Sea, by the way, and had been assigned as a chief petty officer to a demining boat. Christel Wehage worked in her hometown district hospital as a psychotherapist. They met while Eckhard was attending school, eventually married and wanted to start a family. However, in East Germany, because it was a totalitarian communist dictatorship, adults were subject to numerous restrictions, and of course many were being observed, whether they realized it or not, by the East German secret police, Stasi, or Staatssicherheit, or state security. East Germans were unable to choose where they worked or resided. The state delegated where its citizens lived and worked. While there officially was no unemployment, technically there was. People who professed to be Christians or other religious people could be denied work, and they even could be denied a chance to continue studying after high school. And then people who were deemed political enemies could be locked up in prison in the worst case scenario for the rest of their lives. Of course, in extreme cases, they could be executed, occasionally also deported, as happened to two East German artists, at least to two prominent East German artists, to a protest singer, Mr. Wolf Biermann, in the 1970s, and to a rock and roll singer, Miss Nina Hagen, apparently or probably in the 1980s. So Eckhard and Christel endured futile attempts over several years to obtain an apartment together in an area where they could both work. In farewell letters that they wrote to their parents, they explained their reasons in detail for their joint escape attempt. The apartment dilemma was the main reason in their justification. Had they had children, and sadly for them they didn't, only then after waiting for an indefinite amount of time they might have been provided with such living quarters. But under the uncertain circumstances, having children would have only made their dilemma greater. Not wanting to live their lives waiting for an apartment where they could both reside and commute to work, they decided to flee to West Germany by hijacking an airplane. Okay, so that was the story. Eckhard obtained, so sorry for the mistaken notion that I had that they actually wanted to commit suicide by hijacking an airplane. Eckhard was able to buy or otherwise get 2 pistols and ammunition from his unit's armory before departing on a short leave from duty. He and Christel met in East Berlin and booked 2 seats on a flight from East Berlin to Dresden on March the 9th, 1970. After this flight was cancelled, they booked 2 seats on a flight from East Berlin to Leipzig that was scheduled to depart on March the 10th, 1970. They spent the night before their hijacking attempt at the Schönefeld Airport Hotel, and their parents received their farewell letters that they wrote to them from there. Eckhard acknowledged in his letter the possible consequences of a third attempt to flee East Germany, explaining that they only wanted to live their own lives as they wished. And should their hijacking plan fail, then they had better kill themselves. Just before 8 a.m. on the morning of March the 10th, 1970, the couple and 15 other passengers boarded the Antonov AN-24 airplane, so manufactured in the Soviet Union, run by the East German airline Interflug to Leipzig. Shortly after takeoff, Eckhard drew his pistol and ordered the stewardess, Ms. Monika Heine, to tell the pilots to fly to Hannover, so West Germany. She did give such a message to the cockpit along with a secret code used for hijacking. Eckhard tried to push his way into the cockpit but failed. The stewardess intervened, trying to convince them that a lack of fuel necessitated landing in Berlin Tempelhof in West Berlin. Actually, the cockpit crew landed the airplane back in Schönefeld. Looking out of the window during the landing and seeing that they were back in Schönefeld, Eckhard and Christel realized that their escape attempt had failed. After returning to their seats while the plane landed, they fired the fatal shots, killing themselves. Their bodies were cremated in East Berlin, and later their ashes were initially buried at the Neustädter Friedhof cemetery in Magdeburg in the presence of their immediate families. 17 years later, on August the 26th, 1987, their cremated remains were reburied in the Uhren Community Grounds section of the Westfriedhof, also in Magdeburg. It is not known who arranged for and accomplished the reburying. Among the total of at least 140 confirmed Berlin Wall victims, Christel and Eckhard Wehage were the only two victims to die as part of a failed hijacking attempt, and one of two married couples to be classified as Berlin Wall victims.